I don't have your whole like resume memorized. Were you on Veep? You were on Veep. It's not on your site.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yes.
You got to update your site.
I haven't updated the site in like 10 years.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
You know, I have two podcasts. One is with executives in media, and it's called Insider Interviews. And this one, it's quite a living, is conversations about the professional and the personal with my more successful friends. So it's really more of my passion project. And today, for It's Quite a Living, I am very passionate about this person. I'm here with Isiah Whitlock Jr., someone I've known for, oh my God, Isiah, almost 40 years.
hard to believe, but it has been that long.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't sound, a day younger than.
I was hoping you were going to say I don't look a day younger, but
Yeah. Well, it's audio. That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah. So the voice and my youth is still here.
It's true. I'm so, so happy to have this kind of platform to memorialize that friendship. But, I do want to say, I'm going to lead into episode 5 by saying we didn't start out as friends.
We did?
No. Mm-mm. You started as my acting teacher at ACT.
Oh, yes, right.
That's true. And you scared the hell out of me.
Good. Whatever I was doing was working,
It did.
I practiced that, it's like it comes in handy, especially here in New York when I'm on the subway or someone's trying to bother me, then I put on that face and people say, I think I would just rather go on to the next guy. And this brother looked like he doesn't want to be bothered, and so people leave you alone.
It's so true. So I came across one of my journals, and I shared this with you just a few weeks ago. And I found some of these pages, so I'll explain what he means by that look. Here's what I wrote in my journal. First day of class, Isiah Whitlock presiding. He asks for volunteers and says, act. A couple of kids try, and they run out of everyday or weird things to say. And Isiah demands, is that what you call acting? And they don't know what to say, and he just stares at them. We're blown away, and you could hear a pin drop. We all come up with philosophical answers, and we finally create the response that Isiah accepts, which is, acting is simply believable, honest communication. You must create a reality. But you scared the hell out of us doing that. It was that stare. Is that what you call acting? I will never forget that.
I can't believe 40 years ago I was that profound, I was just kind of blowing in the wind back then, but that's good. But I still wish I had a little bit of that today,
The profundity.
Yes, I wish I had a lot of things that I had back then, and that's one of them.
Well, you have my undying friendship. Hey, it's Evie Moss, and this is episode 5 of It's Quite a Living with my friend Isiah Whitlock Jr. Isiah, who's done everything from playing Othello to being in Broadway shows, has also played the corrupt Clay Davis in The Wire. He's been in almost every Spike Lee joint, including the new Da 5 Bloods on Netflix. Funny buddy movies, too, like Cedar Rapids. So if you don't know Isiah, you will after this episode. I walked into that class at American Conservatory Theater really, really defensive. And by the end of it, you had us like fall into each other's arms as an exercise of trust, like just kind of like fall back. And maybe that's a classic scary teacher move in acting. I didn't know. I was so nervous and such a kid. And I walked out of there a lot more in touch and with a friend. So.
Yeah. When you really think about it, trust is vital because you're on stage, with another person or you're on screen with another person and you're trusting them to bring their A game and give you what it is you need to make you do your A game.
Mm.
And you don't really know until you're out there and you feel it and you're not getting what it is you need. And so you start to distrust. And that's when everything goes off the rails. I mean, you don't have to do that exercise, but trust is a very, very important thing.
Yeah.
And then you begin to associate it with life and trust in life and everything like that. And you begin to see how the two connect.
Mm.
That life is not any different than what it is you're, performing on stage. You just have a different set of circumstances.
And it seems that you also taught us vulnerability, and that seems to go hand in hand with a good life lesson too, is trust and vulnerability, scary strength.
Yeah, well, the thing is that's one of my pet peeves about a lot of actors. They don't allow themselves to be vulnerable. I mean, what you do naturally in life, I mean, I think most people are vulnerable to a certain extent, but on stage, we have a tendency to be so guarded because people are watching, and you've got to let that go. There's certain things you need to do to be able to find that vulnerability, because to me, that's where the magic happens. When you start layering all these things like trust and vulnerability, believability, that's what people are looking for. And that's how you can, as an actor, stay ahead of people, that they can't get out in front. Because if you're vulnerable, you can't pin that down. You never know where it's coming from, how it's going to happen. And so you'll always keep the audience on the edge of their seat. But if you're just floating on the surface, the audience will get ahead of you. They'll get bored, and things will start to fall apart.
So I said in the introduction that you've done serious to comedy, of course, the corrupt Clay Davis and The Wire, to Five Bloods, and in between Cedar Rapids. So is it any different to play a comedic role with vulnerability versus a serious acting role?
No, there's no difference whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. The comedy is going to come from that vulnerability, because people see you in a certain situation and it's so believable that they start to laugh. I never looked at myself as a comedian or trying to be funny, but I think the comedy comes out of the seriousness of that situation. And so people look at that and it might remind them of themselves, or they're wondering how you're going to get out of it. And that's where the comedy comes from, or even the seriousness of it. The two are not that far apart.
Mm-hmm.
The comedy, or comedy and tragedy, or comedy and seriousness. And the approach is always going to be the same. Sometimes you'll play the opposite of it, where that comedy can be very touching and heartfelt.
I Googled you. Well, I didn't Google you, but I put like Isiah Whitlock Jr. in the little search thing on my TV guide. And there were like half a dozen things that are currently airing right now, not the least of which is To Five Bloods, but, The Lost Husband and things like that. So you've got a lot going on. What was the turning point that got you to have a lot going on?
I don't think there was one turning point. I had quite a career, especially when I was at the American Conservatory Theater. I was working all the time. I had a lot of energy, and I was preparing for that opportunity. And I had a pretty nice life in San Francisco. Then I came to New York, and it took a while to sort of get things started, but I had developed enough of a base in San Francisco to support myself in New York, to not get frustrated. I had a bit of an idea as to what to do, how to hang in there, so to speak. And when you say turning point, I did a play, this was maybe about 20 years ago, at a place called the Tribeca Playhouse. And I did a play by Christopher Shin called Four. And I think that might be the turning point when I think back, because it was a 50-seat house and the world was changing. And I played this sort of like pedophile school teacher. And it was a huge success here in New York City. We got reviewed by the New York Times, I think it was twice, maybe three times, because the story was so compelling. The world was changing at that time. And it was kind of like this brave new world with the internet and computers and things like that. And what I did was I fashioned the character in a way that you could not dismiss the guy.
Wow.
And it was total manipulation on my part because I made the audience side with the pedophile. I made the audience feel something for what the pedophile was going through. I know that sounds terrible, but this is what I was handed. This is what I had to do. Because my whole feeling was like, look, there's no way I'm going to be able to go out there and just play some guy like that. But you get inside that character and you start to work with, okay, why is he this way? What is he feeling? What is he going through? By the end of the show, I built a very strong case. I mean, it was terrible. I got letters. People hated me. But I think it was from the attention that I got in the New York Times at that time.
In the case of 4, you had to play a pedophile, and you said you played the cards you were dealt, and you had to make him sympathetic because that was your character, that was your responsibility. But have you been in a situation where you absolutely didn't agree with the way the director wanted you to approach a role?
Usually, I kind of get all that worked out before I even get cast. When I did this play 4, they said, we have this play that we've been passing around and nobody wants to do it because of the subject matter. And they said, in conversations, your name keeps coming up as a guy who does these types of things.
Wait,
and I said, oh, really? Wow.
What kind of things?
That's what I wondered. It was, and they say you're the guy who can handle this type of material. And I said, well, send me a copy of the script, and let me take a look at it. And for about the next week, I was thinking, oh, this must be, they're going to send me a copy of Hamlet or some great Shakespearean tragedy or something. And it was this play and then that's when I started thinking, oh my God, who the hell, my name keeps coming up. What is that all about? But I realized what they were saying was that somebody who would not balk at the material, who would be willing to give it a shot. I mean, I began to look at it as a bit of a compliment, as to somebody who could get inside this character and make them believable and watchable. And that's what I was able to do.
So that kind of brings us to working with directors. What happened?
Nothing.
Okay, I gotta wait for that noise though.
I'm just getting comfortable.
Okay. Have you done a podcast or radio before?
You can take the boy out of Indiana, but you can't take the Indiana out of the boy.
Oh, so one of the directors you probably have some shorthand with now, where you don't have to audition anymore, is of course Spike Lee. How did your relationship with Spike come about, and is there any Spike Lee joint you have not been in?
Well, Spike Lee came to see the show that I was doing downtown.
Really? I'm psychic. I didn't even know that was the connection.
That was the connection. He came, he saw the show, and he came backstage, and he chatted with everybody in the show, which there was only 4 of us. We were freaked out. We were totally freaked out. And a couple of days later, he invited me to audition for a movie called The 25th Hour. And I auditioned, and there was a moment where I said, shit. And Spike said, do that again. I did it again. And he said, you should keep that. We were kind of laughing about it. We were throwing around a bunch of stuff and just kind of improvising at the audition and everything like that. And he said, you should think about keeping that. And then he cast me in the 25th hour. And that's when I first did that. And that's where that all came
Oh,
about.
that's so
But it
funny.
was, but it was because Spike came and saw this play that was getting all of this attention downtown. And that's where that all came about. And going back to 2-4, there was something very wonderful about the grittiness of it. You're downtown in this sort of grind joint of a theater, 50-seat house, paint peeling off the walls. And it was everything you see in the movies about, theater in the old days and doing things like that. You're not making any money. You got a cat running around. There was one performance where the cat ran across the stage, and you're faced with, do I stop the show and say, we got to get rid of the cat? Or do I pretend the cat's not there and the audience doesn't see the cat? Or do I work the cat into the action? It was nasty. And then, and then you put the character that I'm playing on top of it, and it was just nasty. But it was honest to God, true, gritty type theater. But that's where my relationship with Spike Lee came
And
from.
that's where the Sheeeeeeee-it thing started. And I thought it was the other way around. I thought that you started that as your trademark in The Wire, and then he
No.
had you do it in all of his films. So that's interesting.
No. And I never, in my wildest dreams, did I think that would take off like that.
To the bobblehead Hall
that
of Fame, we might add.
Yes. But that was never, ever my intention, because if you go back and watch The Wire, a lot of people say it in The
Mhm.
Wire. And that's kind of like that's for lack of a better word, kind of like a black
Mhm.
thing, that you hear growing up constantly. My uncle used to do it quite a bit. And I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, there's this strange thing. People seem so fascinated by this sort of common thing that we all say, shit. And he said, no, he said, I think the difference is the way you do it, the way you can place it in your voice and your nose and how long you can do it. And that's where the difference comes from. And that's what makes it ring out, because it's not like anybody else just out there doing it. But I've heard people do it. I've heard people do it from, throughout the years. And it's a very common thing. But I think it was the way I was doing it that was making it kind of sing. And when I was doing it, was making it become this thing, to the bobblehead Hall of Fame.
Well, Isaiah, almost anything you say, even you've called me on almost every birthday and said, "Hey, baby, happy birthday." See, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. You got to get down. Yeah, but I always do it early in the morning when my voice is
Yeah.
very low.
All right. So you said that it's like a black thing, and so not only do I not have your pipes, but I'm not black.
All these years, I thought you were. Well, you're an honorary.
Thank you. That's all right. You've been to my Hanukkah party many times, so.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Okay.
my friend Jackie Green, she's a Broadway publicist and one of the funniest women I know. And she told me, as the Black Lives Movement was taking hold recently, you would call her black friends and say, "I'm calling to say the wrong thing."
Yeah.
So after 37 years of friendship, I've probably said the wrong thing to you. And it's weird that we even have to acknowledge our differences.
I mean, I've said the wrong thing many a times. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But if somebody says the wrong thing, I very kindly correct them. Yeah, and they'll be correct when I'm done.
Oh God, there's the stare again. I want to talk about a little bit more, of course, about your life, just to kind of circle back on some of the professional. Last August, So almost a year ago, I got an email from you. I was checking in saying, hey, when can we get together? And I didn't know you weren't still in the city at that point. And you wrote back, still in Vietnam, then to New Orleans to shoot a new Showtime show with Bryan Cranston. So that's like, it's quite a living, Isiah. So,
I mean, if you put it like that, I mean,
yeah,
you know, people sort of criticize me sometimes because I make it seem like just kind of like a normal
yeah,
thing,
you
you
do.
know, like. And then it's like as if you're expecting someone to say, "Okay, I'm just now leaving Paris, and I'll be in Hong Kong for a couple of days, and then we'll hook up one at the coffee shop back in New
Yeah,
York City." You know? But that's what I was doing.
I
That's what I
know.
was doing, and it seems like people always call me
When you get to drop
when
a little
I'm
name or drop where you are.
but I can tell you the most famous one. I won't tell you the person, but I got a call from a director one time. And he said, Isiah, where are you? And I was shooting a movie in London, and I had about a week or so off. So I flew to Italy because I was looking to buy a property over there at one
Mhm.
time. And I was driving from Rome to Florence. And I'm driving, and the phone rings. And it's this director, and he says, where are you? And I said, well, I was in London, but I had about a week off. I'm in Rome, and I'm on my way to Florence to meet with my lawyer, Giacomo, to purchase this property. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is it. This is it. You know, I'm in London. I'm on my way to Florence. I've got this famous director calling me. Oh my God, this is, you know, it's happening. It's happening. This is how it works, you know. And the director said, oh, you know, that sounds great. It sounds great. And we talked a little bit about The Wire and how much he enjoyed it and everything like that. And he said, and okay, well, you know, enjoy your trip to Florence. And I was like, well, wait a minute, where's the three picture deal? I mean, what- no, I was ready to wreck my car. I was like, dude, you're really messing this up. You're messing up you know, we want you to star as the next Darth Vader. It was like, come on with it. Come on with it. You know, I'm driving. I'm on the phone. You know, come on, come on. What is the deal? You know,
And he was calling to say
uh,
hi.
yeah, just calling to
Yeah.
say hi. Just calling to say hi. When I tell people that, you know, especially my actor friends, that story, they have no sympathy for
No,
me
I
whatsoever.
have none, and no. And the other thing is that here's the other reality is, yes, after Vietnam, you did have to go to NOLA, New Orleans, and,
Yes.
yet, unfortunately, you're like, I think 80% of the way through shooting and COVID hits, and
Hmm.
everybody bails on New Orleans. And you, as I recall the story, kind of gave up your New York apartment because you were going to be there for months. So you're now stuck in New Orleans with no Bourbon Street action and none of your little friends from the shoot. So, you know, it's tough to be famous and
Famous and homeless. I have nowhere to
oh,
go. I'm homeless.
yes.
It reminds me of when I first got to New York. I was
Mm.
homeless for about maybe a
And I
month.
wasn't even living here. You could have had my bad sleeper sofa.
No, it was bad. I had gotten together with a bunch of friends, and we had a little small theater down in Chelsea, which was bad at the time, way on the west side. And I would go in there, I would sneak in there at night and sleep, but I would always had to be out by 8 o'clock before anybody got there because I didn't want anybody to know that I was sleeping there. And I would get up at like around about 7 o'clock and just go and sit in the subway on a bench and either continue sleeping or get on the train and ride for a while. I mean, it was bad.
Wow.
This was like, do I just jump on the tracks now
I would have killed you.
and let the E train get me, or I mean, And that was about as low as I had ever gotten.
I don't think I
Mm.
really remember that story, that time in your life. What changed after that, Isaiah?
Oh, I, yeah, I got a great job as a bartender, started making a lot of money, and then I could afford an apartment. And by the grace of God, things stabilized,
Yeah.
but it was bad. And it was during the winter when winter used to be really bad in New York City before global warming. And it was just bad.
I'm glad that you pulled up and out of that. And I don't know if this started your love and appreciation of wine that bartending saved you, but your bio talks about you being kind of like a Renaissance man. And I do know this about you. You're a huge wine collector. When you were in Italy, did that property have anything to do with a vineyard? Because I know you bottled your own label, didn't you?
It did. I did do like my own label and everything like that. I still make
Mhm.
wine. And
Like I Love Lucy with the bathtub.
Well, everybody says that, but a winemaker, a great winemaker from Italy, explained to me why they do the wine and stuff with their feet. In some places, it's rare, but in some places, it is still done about the bruising of the grapes. And you get a sexier wine when it's done with your feet because you don't tear up the grapes all that much and stuff and release so much tannin into the wine. So that is still happening. But I did want to, maybe possibly do something in Italy with wine and stuff like that. But circumstances kind of changed. And now I just make enough wine to give to friends and stuff like that. And they seem to enjoy it.
So not only did I not get the gold plated autographed bobblehead of you saying she it, I don't believe I've gotten an Isaiah Whitlock bottle of wine. So when you get back to New York,
You never got a
I got a
bobblehead?
bobblehead. I got one of the early
Oh, you
bobbleheads.
did.
I did not get the
Oh, you
gold
did. You
plated
did.
autographed one. Mm.
Oh,
Hmm.
of bobblehead
A
or wine?
bobblehead, nor did I get a bottle of wine.
Yeah, the gold plated
Don't
bobblehead.
try to don't try to
Uh,
get out of this.
no, but it kind of fizzled a little bit. That was kind of like a special thing we were giving out.
I
Most people
rest
just
my
purchase
case.
the, but
40 years, Isaiah.
the gold plated bobblehead was like like a grand. I mean,
40
I mean, like
years.
what kind did I give
The
you?
one in the box that, you shipped to me in the mail.
But you got a first edition bobblehead, and that's
Do you
worth a
want to
lot of
explain what
money
we're
now.
talking about, by the way?
I make these bobbleheads that it's a talking bobblehead that says shit. And uh, you can get the bobblehead. There's three phrases, three ways I say shit on the bobblehead. It's a great product and it's a very solid, well made product. And we did a campaign on Kickstarter and we raised over $100,000 to make the
I'm in the wrong
bobblehead.
business.
Well, I started to wonder, I might be in the wrong business. You know, but when they handed me the check, I was like, should I pull like a real Clay Davis and say, hey, look, I'm keeping the money, because it was like, now I got to make the goddamn thing. And I thought people would say, oh, well, it was Clay Davis that we were giving the money to. So,
Yeah.
he took all of it. But we did make the bobblehead, and I think we sold about 10,000 of
Wow.
them, and we're on the third or fourth edition.
Okay.
Uh, but but the bobblehead has been great.
Still
It's
doesn't
been it's been
answer
great.
why I didn't get the bottle of wine, but that's okay because I know you're coming back to New York soon, and I will make you pay.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I've got quite enough wine. What you want to get is the new. I have a new wine coming out. They're very high end grapes that I got from Napa, and that's the one you want to
Okay.
get. You want to get
Okay.
one of
That's
those.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Better than the $2 chuck that I have in the cabinet now. you've been to my Hanukkah parties before, as I mentioned. So,
Mhm.
what's your opinion on the best wine to pair with latkes? Come on.
Latkes. Well, you said you had 2 buck chuck.
My latkes are better than that. We're
It has
deserving.
it. No, I'm not even. I'm not talking about the latkes. I mean, it's just people coming to the party and everything like that. But what I would do is with latkes, I would go with like a Pinot Noir or maybe a Merlot. To me, definitely not a Cabernet. That would just be way too heavy. If it was a party, you could also do like a real nice French Beaujolais, something that's not going to overwhelm. You could also maybe do a white, but I wouldn't do anything real acidic. Even though they're like potatoes and things like that, you still want to have that taste come through. You don't want it overwhelmed by a real heavy wine.
So let's bring it back to current time now with what we mentioned in New Orleans. What's the name of the show, and when do you think it'll actually see the light of day on Showtime?
Well, the name of the show is Your Honor, and Bryan Cranston plays a judge. So it deals with the legal system here in New Orleans, but it could be pretty much anywhere. Kind of like The Wire, dealing with everything that was happening in Baltimore, but the feel is somewhat universal. I think it's going to be a great series. We got about maybe 3/4 of the way through it, and we had to shut down because of COVID. So once things kind of ease up or we flatten the curve, we'll all get back together and finish it up and hope people
Yeah,
enjoy it.
it sounds great.
I'm pretty sure they will.
I don't have a cool segue to this one, but I do want to talk about a little bit more of your past because I love that you are one of like 11 children,
Mhm.
and at least two of you are kind of famous, maybe
Mhm.
more. You want to talk about that?
Well, my sister is one half of Madison Ward and the Mama Bear, and Madison Ward is her son, my nephew. So they have a duo that they play now pretty much all over the world, but they're doing very well. And that's my
I
sister and
love
nephew.
that. I love that. I was just
Yeah.
checking out some of their tweets recently. So, Isaiah, do you have a favorite memory of, say, me? A little bit about me?
God, we'd be here for another hour.
Maybe when I played Nurse Carol. And what did you play? We did a corporate video that my sister was producing for the National League for Nursing. We
Yes,
got you
yes.
cheap back then.
Back then that was a
I
good
think that was
job.
on your
I
resume
mean,
for a while.
yeah, I mean that was a good job. I do remember though I was
You were.
bald and I had gone to Harlem to buy a wig. And
What?
yes, yes, yes. I think I even bought a wig. We just didn't use the wig, but I think your sister wanted me to
Are
have
you
some hair.
kidding?
And yeah, and I had this wig. I had a wig. And I remember the guy in Harlem being very angry with me because he had tried a bunch of wigs on. And I thought, oh no, no, God, no. I mean, I look like some pimp, working. And it was like, and he became very angry. Not angry, but I remember him saying, well, okay, fine, fine. Well, look, because I said I wanted to look around. That was my way of getting
Uh-huh.
out of it. And he says, well, go out there and look at the rest, and then when you come back, you'll get the best. And I remember him saying that. And and I wanted to say, you've got a beautiful collection of James Brown wigs here, but I'm just not playing James Brown. I'm supposed to be a doctor, orderly in a hospital, and this is just not going
No.
to work.
You look
Yeah,
good bald in that thing. I think that you probably set the trend.
it worked. It
Yeah.
worked. It worked. It was fine. I mean, you look at it now, but a lot of people were not bald back then. Everybody had
Yeah,
like an
my point.
afro or
You
something like
started
that.
it.
But I remember thinking they're gonna get me shot. I'm up here in Harlem trying to buy a trying to buy a trying to
For the
buy a
nurses
wig.
video.
Yeah, for a nurse video. Uh,
There was
it was.
also the time, speaking of holiday meals, we did go visit my sister once, and it was during Passover. And at
Mhm.
Passover, you open the door to a spirit named Elijah, and you invite in anyone who needs food and sustenance and what have you. And you set a cup of wine out for Elijah. So my sister didn't know you were coming. So at a certain point in the meal, I told you to wait outside. And it said, "All right, and now we're going to go open the door for Elijah." And we opened the door, and there was Isaiah.
Yeah, well, not quite Elijah, Isaiah, Elijah. I answer to both. Just let me in because I'm hungry.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh my God, we've had some fun over the years.
but
Mm.
no, that was very very nice. I had never been to anything like that, and so it was quite an experience, quite an interesting
Yeah.
experience. The only thing I gotta say is there was a very peculiar fish thing that it
At
was sort
Passover?
of.
Yeah. You're
Yeah, it
the
had
fish
some
that's like a whole
like,
chopped up melange of
yeah, yeah. I didn't want to say anything at the time, but it was
what that
peculiar.
wasn't to
It
your
was,
palate, gefilte fish. That's what you're thinking of. Say it
you
with me.
know,
Gefilte fish.
good,
Stick to
gefilte
she
fish.
it.
Good. Well, in all honesty, it tasted like the name.
It tastes
It's appropriately named, but it was
yeah.
wow. I'm glad this is not the first thing I tasted because otherwise,
Ha
Elijah Elijah would have been on his way back to the train.
Oh,
I haven't played Elijah since, but it wasn't because of
gefilte.
the but no, it was very, very nice. And it was good to see your sister and spend that time. And it was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well,
Yes.
you are always welcome as Elijah or Isaiah or on my podcast. Can't wait for you to come back to New York. Mhm.
Now I'm going to start getting requests to, to show up at people's house. Yeah.
And
So,
here's what I would
you
say to
know,
them. Make him bring the wine.
yes, yes, yes.
Isaiah, we could definitely go on for another hour. And it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for, first and foremost, being my friend all these years. Second of all, for, everything you give to everybody as their friend and your generosity and entertainment. And I love you. And I think that you are tremendous. So Isiah Whitlock Jr., it's quite a living.
It's quite a life.
Okay, you almost forgot that line.
You want to run that? You
Yeah,
want to run that again?
although that was pretty funny.
I don't remember like I used to.
Isiah Whitlock Jr., stay safe, stay well on your way home from New Orleans. And all I have to say is, Isaiah, it's quite a living.
EB, it's quite a life.
Thank you, my friend. Well, I really want to thank you for listening, for sharing, for subscribing to, hopefully even rating this podcast and telling your friends, because after all, this is just about talking with friends. So thank you for being in my expanding circle of friends. And the truth is, whether you're living quite the living, we're all really lucky to be living quite the life.